This class we will study the moderate phase and the extremist phase of Indian national movement. The foundation of Congress in December 1885 was for right in your answer. Now let us have a look at the questions of today's class. Describe briefly the ideas and program of Indian National Congress between 1885 and 1905. So write all these. We have discussed in detail. Assess official response. The moderates were insulted, ridiculed, sidelined. They were not taken seriously by the British. So those things you need to write in second part. Some reforms were initiated. So that is positive part of the official response to the moderate politics. Describe the nature of Indian nationalism with special reference to the character of its leadership in period between 1885 and 1905. So this is going to demand only the nature and character. All the 15 dimensions of nature and character you need to write here. With an intrinsic faith in the providential nature of British rule, the moderates hoped that one day they would be recognized as partners, not subordinates in affairs of empire, and they gave in the rights of full British citizenship. So this is about the character, in particular the belief of moderates in the efficacy of British rule, the belief of moderates in British sense of justice and fairness, the belief that British were here to do good to India, to develop Indians, to help Indians to live a better and prosper life. So that was illusionary, so that you have to understand the second part critically. That was the result of the fact that moderates failed to comprehend the true colonial character of British rule. They could not see that colonialism and British rule were basically two faces of the same coin. Question number 4, the economic theory put forward. Economic theory means economic critic. Put forward by moderates was trying to corrode the moral authority of colonial rule by linking Indian poverty to colonialism and perhaps by implication challenging the whole concept of paternalistic or British benevolence. So here you have to write about the moderate politics, what was their outlook, and the main focus has to be on the economic critique by exposing the drain of wealth from India, by exposing the fact that Indian industries were being destroyed by British, by exposing that British rule was responsible for Indian poverty, hunger and recurring famine. These moderates attacked the basic notions such as white man's burden, the British providential mission, and they successfully shattered the British benevolence. This was in turn responsible for the emergence of extremism. So that's what you need to write, economic critique put forward by moderates. Question number 5, politics remained the bulk of moderates very much a part-time affair. Congress was not a political party but an annual 3-day show. So this comment was made by Ashwini Kumar Dutt as a criticism of the moderate politics. This was the result, or this was guided by the ideological differences between moderates and extremists. It did not represent truth. They were meeting for 3 days in a year in Congress session, but it does not mean that for the remaining part of the year, they did not pay any attention to the sufferings of Indians. They always raised their voice through newspapers, through journals, in legislative councils, etc. So they were true nationalists, and they did whatever best was possible. Only thing that they were the first generation nationalists. Many leaders could not see their contribution because moderates were busy in the task of laying foundations. Foundations cannot be seen by everybody. Foundations can be seen by anyone who can understand the structure holistically. Question number 6, critically examine the contributions of moderates in the formative stage of Congress. So write about the achievements or contributions here. Number 7, examine the causes and nature of extremism. So causes of rise and nature of extremist movement, both parts you have to write in brief, because issue would be otherwise very, very big. Question number 8, when Curzon entered the scene, the ferment of extremism had already begun to work. His policy only quickened its growth. So again, demands the same circumstances and the factors responsible for the emergence of extremism you have to write here. You have to divide your answer into two parts, before Curzon and with arrival of Curzon. He acted as a catalyst through his reactionary policies and through partition of Bengal. The last question here, moderates emphasized the need for political apprenticeship. Apprenticeship means training, that we should keep learning under British rule. The extremists rejected the idea of England's providential mission. So write about the ideological differences between moderates and extremists. The moderates believed in British sense of justice and fairness. Moderates believed that British were good people. They wanted to do good to India. Extremists had no faith in that notion. So those ideas, those points you have to emphasize here. Write all these answers in 300 words, upload on portal in your account, and I'll check your answers as we will study the Gandhian phase of Indian national movement. This class will focus on the issues like the rise of Mahatma Gandhi, the controversies associated with the emergence of Gandhiji as the supreme leader of nationalist struggle, the nature and character of Gandhian movement, and finally the contribution or significance of Gandhian movement in saying, okay, this would happen better, because everyone can improve, everyone can be better than what we are today. Let us look at the questions on this topic. How would you explain Gandhiji's rise to power or capture of national leadership in the course of 1919-20? So start with a controversy triggered by Judith Brown, and then give the factors responsible for his rise as the supreme leader of anti-British struggle. Trace the emergence of Gandhi. On India's political scene, the issue is the same. They start from South Africa and reach till his charisma. That is point number 8. Number 3, Mahatma Gandhi's success during 1919-20 in getting the technique of non-violent satyagraha accepted by nation as a weapon of his struggle against British was phenomenal. So question is very lengthy. Answer is very, very simple. You have to write about the significance of Gandhian leadership, the significance of Gandhian movement. What did India get through Gandhian movements? All the points of significance you have to write here. Because that Gandhian struggle, Gandhian method of struggle was accepted by the people in 1920. It means Gandhian leadership was established on freedom struggle in 1919-20. So what was the significance? That is Gandhian significance. Number 4, establish the nature and character of Gandhian movement. You can write all the points of nature, character, and highlight the significance. So second point is significance. You have to be very brief, otherwise you will end up writing 10, 15 or 20 different pages. So in UPSC you have to write things in a very, very concise manner. You may know a lot, but putting things in a very precise manner is a big challenge. So you have to understand and you have to learn how to counter that challenge successfully. Number 5, Gandhiji neatly converted a political movement into a moral war that his adversaries could not win. So answer you have to pick up from the part of significance of Gandhian movement and focus specifically on removing the fear, expanding the mass base, liberation of women, satyagraha, ethical moral struggle, and finally the last point, the Gandhian movement transformed the anti-British struggle into a moral war that his adversaries could never win. So whenever there is a fight between right and wrong, the right is always bound to emerge victorious. Number 6, discuss how satyagrahas of Gandhiji removed the spell of fear among Indians and thus knocked off an important pillar. So again, pick up the points from significance, mass, secular, liberation of women, everyone, pan-India, and when people started participating in anti-British struggle under the leadership of Gandhiji, when people could see the helplessness of British in front of Gandhiji, they realized that British rule was not invincible. They realized that they could also succeed against British rule, and British rule will have to go away from India one day. So that was very, very important success, removing the element of fear or granting psychological freedom to the masses. The last question here, how difficult would have been the achievement of Indian independence without Mahatma Gandhi? We have discussed in detail here that it was Gandhian leadership that brought the day of independence closer. So write about significance, and then last argument which I have discussed with you, you have to write generations of Indians would have continued to suffer under the darkness of British colonial rule without the light of Gandhian leadership. So write all phase of Indian national movement and the phase of revolutionary extremist movement. We'll start with the socialist phase, and in the second part of the class, the revolutionary extremist movement will be studied. Let us start with introduction to the socialist phase. Control in the success of India's struggle against British rule, they brought the day of India's liberty very, very close. Now let us see the questions on today's class. Account for the emergence of left wing within Congress. So write the factors. How far did it influence the program and policy of Congress? So write about the influences. All the 4 dimensions of character you need to keep in mind. Then the programs related to abolition of zamindari and all you need to keep in mind. So that's the second part. Number 2, underline the growth of various forms of socialist ideologies in Indian national movement between World War I and World War II. So radical and liberal both you need to write here. A powerful left-wing group developed in India in late 1920s and 30s, contributing to radicalization of movement. So write about the philosophy, write about the impact. Number 4, the emergence of left-wing group in Congress radicalized its social and economic agenda. So write about the character, how this was radical, was different from the mainstream Congress or Gandhian Congress. And then write about impact. Examine the causes of rise and progress of revolutionary in India. So revolutionary extremist movement in India. So write about the causes, all the factors. Describe the changing nature of revolutionary activities in India between 1905 and 1946. All the 4 dimensions you need to write with examples. Evaluate the contribution of revolutionary extremism represented by Bhagat Singh to the cause of India's struggle for independence. So significance, contribution, we have discussed. Examine the contribution of revolutionary extremist movement to the success of India's struggle against British rule. So here also is the same. Write about the contribution or significance. All these questions you must answer